Excuse me, do you mind if I sit here? I won't be a burden, I promise. It's just there aren't many tables left. Damn hyperspace storm. It's got quite a few flights stranded. Oh, you too. I feel you guys, I feel you. I'm okay. At my age, one shouldn't hurry anymore, eh? But yours is a different matter. You're young. You must rush to get it all. It only seems that your whole life is ahead of you, but in reality, it will fly by, and you won't even notice. Take my word for it. Man, it's all probably just a regular old-timer bubbling for you, right? Well, it's just that I've been sitting here for 2 days, bored to death. How long have you guys been staying here? So you're from around here, just waiting for your flight. Going on vacation, I guess. Somewhere in the paradise gardens of Rigel orbitals? Oh, come on, it's not that hard to guess. There's a case on your belt, young man. That's a replacement light filter for active goggles, isn't it? Here we go. You are flying with your gorgeous wife. My respect, by the way. You really look awesome. And dressed casually. So it must be a vacation. And the nearest good resort, where you may need light filters, is Rigel orbitals. You see? Nothing complicated. Oh, come on. I'm not a detective. I'm just a humble civil servant with little time left until retirement. A little attention to detail and a little logical thinking, that's all I've got. Oh, no. I'm not on vacation, unfortunately. I'm here on a business trip. Imagine that. At my age, I'm still traveling around the galaxy, at least 2 or 3 business trips a year. Yeah, I've seen a lot. I've been to parts of the galaxy you probably haven't even heard the names of. Even the artificial planets at the very tip of the Serpent's Tail Nebula. It took me almost a year to get there, can you imagine? The inhabitants there have developed a very interesting communication system by means of ultraviolet pulses. And still, they're part of the Galactic Federation, and they joined it almost 2,000 standard years ago. Well, we didn't have much trouble with them, oddly enough. Come on, guys, this won't interest you at all. The usual government red tape. Documents here, documents there, contracts, licenses, summaries. There's no need to tell you all this boring bureaucracy. Would you like me to tell you a really interesting story instead? We have plenty of time. Looks like this storm isn't going away anytime soon. Well, it all started 40 years ago with a young government inspector named Lockstein. He had just graduated from the Federal Management Academy in the Procyon University cluster and was determined to do as much good for the galactic community as possible. Oh, you graduated from there too? Well, that's interesting. It's my alma mater too. Can you imagine that? But I don't think any of my professors are still working there. Anyway, as a trainee, Lockstein was sent to a rather unremarkable system in a small corner of the galaxy, in the 118th quadrant. If you count from here, from your wonderful planet, you can't get much farther than that. The people there were interested in joining the Federation, but first, of course, we had to assess their economy and social structure, and then we could negotiate the length of the probationary period as an associate member of the Federation. The system was not so important for the Federation. That's why only a trainee was sent there. He was initially supposed to be paired with an experienced staff member, but the latter had fallen seriously ill at the very last moment. So Lockstein had to be sent alone. He was even warned that it would be no big deal if he could not immediately figure out the local realities. In a couple of months, several more specialists would arrive and help him finish what he had started, and no one would ask him strictly. As a result, it turned out that a completely inexperienced but very ambitious and energetic graduate had his hands completely free, and even the responsibility was removed from him in advance. A dangerous combination, if you think about it that way. Don't you agree? That lad turned out to be bright, after all. In any case, he was reasonable enough to start by thoroughly reading all the documentation available on this planet. Biological parameters of the dominant intelligent species, for example. Quite humanoid and very much like humans, albeit with some differences. What else was in the report? The usual information, data on the planet, climate, biosphere, land, seas, and oceans, and the level of scientific and technological development, of course. Although there was a small snag, the usual comprehensive study was not conducted, but instead Lockstein used the data provided by the planet's natives. That was sort of off the rules, but he didn't think about that at that point. Anyway, on his way to the place, Lockstein read all this carefully. Luckily there was time, and concluded that he should not have any problems. The natives were friendly. Their level of development was just right, and if anything was wrong, he would sort it out and correct it on the go. Everything turned out more or less as Lockstein had planned. The natives met him very warmly. After all, they were the ones who wanted to join the Galactic Federation, so why would they treat badly its representative, on whom the fate of their application largely depended? The natives' metabolism was virtually identical to that of humans. Any possible harmful microflora could be taken care of by the enhanced bio-blockade procedure all government field workers underwent, and the local foods were surprisingly palatable. Lockstein was accommodated in an excellent hotel located in the belt of moderate subtropics, and at his first request they provided him with transportation with a private driver. They already had the first anti-grav flyers, clumsy but effective, or experts on any issue, if Lockstein wished to clarify something. In short, not a job, but a paradise. Still, the young man took his duties very meticulously and seriously, but a month passed, the second and the third, and the promised help mission from the Federation government did not arrive. Of course, no matter how enthusiastic he was about his work and the marvelous atmosphere the natives provided, he gradually began to worry. The natives responded to all his requests to send inquiries to the proper authorities by saying that they regularly did so and were promised that the mission was about to arrive. But everything remained the same. Lockstein worked, prepared a detailed report and recommendations on joining the Federation for the Control Commission, and advised the local government on various management issues. The planet prospered. Everything went wonderfully until one day, Lockstein came to his senses, looked at the calendar, and realized that he had been living on the planet for the third year, and had no idea when the federal authorities would relieve him from duty. He was puzzled not only by the fact of such neglect of his person and the planet by his superiors, but also by the fact that he seemed to have fallen out of reality for a good 2.5 years. Of course, the natives were not too different from humans, but still, they were not humans. They had different proportions, different shapes of eyes, and, most importantly, 3 basic genders. But Lockstein suddenly realized that he felt almost at home among them. I'm sorry. Am I boring you with my old man talk yet? I just see you squirming impatiently and looking at the flight timetable. Unfortunately, the delayed flights will be announced in 6 hours at the earliest. I checked with the information service right before I sat down with you, and I assure you, even more people are waiting in the other restaurants and lounges. At least it's less crowded here in the VIP area. So, do you want to know how it ended? Let me get you another drink on me. What were you drinking? Tolmadian Blue Double Clear. My respect, you know what a good drink is. That's something you don't see very often among today's youth. Here we go. The cyber bartender will be here in a couple minutes. Now, where was I? So Lockstein wasn't exactly in distress, but rather feeling a certain unease. He was in a bizarre and unpleasant situation. He was stranded on a little-known planet in a remote corner of the galaxy, which had no official relations with the Federation, and he had been there for years. At this point, Lockstein was beginning to ask himself if he was sure exactly how many years had passed since his arrival on the planet. The promised mission, which was supposed to continue the work based on his report, never arrived. However, Lockstein noticed that it hardly bothered him, that all he wanted to do was to continue to enjoy the friendliness of the natives, help them develop their planet, and he had already become quite adept at it, it must be admitted, and not think about anything else. And even this mental contradiction didn't bother him too much. The only thing he forced himself to do was secretly make a small calendar, in which he began to count the days spent on the planet in the most primitive way. And when this calendar began to noticeably overtake his inner sense of time, and the dates that were counted by the official calendars, everything in his office was provided by the natives, in case you have forgotten, and the connection to the local World Information Network was a personal Lockstein's channel. Only then did he manage to make himself at least a little anxious, and yet that anxiety was not enough to make a difference. Lockstein again plunged into a whirlwind of familiar work, which was fascinating as usual. The planet's governing system was improving, the efficiency of industrial production was increasing, the development of science was accelerating, and the social aspects and culture were also being pulled up. Lockstein felt that in a little more time, the planet would be able to do perfectly on its own without membership in the Federation, and become an independent unit with which it would be possible to negotiate on a totally different level. I see you're a little tired after all. Well, don't worry. I'm about to finish. You are probably anxious to know whether Lockstein got off that planet, and whether the natives could join the Federation in the end. Oddly enough, the answer to both questions is yes and no at the same time, which is why I've come halfway across the galaxy to sit here before you. What? I'm Lockstein. What a fantastic guess. I applaud your deductive powers, even if they failed you this time. No, I'm not Lockstein. In fact, I'm the one who finally arrested him in one of the most advanced clusters in the Federation. Forgive me if I was a little sly at the beginning of our conversation. I am, after all, a bit of a detective, even though I work for another agency. Of course, the person I arrested was not a true Lockstein, but one of the natives of that planet, who had mimicked Lockstein, and had worked as such for many years in the Department of External Relations of the Galactic Federation. It was an excellent disguise, I must tell you, right down to the biochemistry of his body. You see, that planet was not a paradise, but, on the contrary, was brought by the natives to a completely catastrophic state. It became clear when not just another mission from the department, but the second strike fleet of the Federation arrived there. The planet was so severely depleted and had been in such a poor state for so long that it had no substantial space defenses and could not have any. So when the fleet commander pressed the locals a bit, they took no chances and gave away what was left of the Lockstein and the 5 missions sent to the planet for inspections. A few dozen special biopods, in which the brains connected to virtual reality stimulators floated. By then, we had arrested more than half of the natives who had managed to infiltrate the Federation, posing as people they captured. Obviously, the reports that the fake Lockstein and all the other doppelgangers had brought said that the planet was encouraging, but still had to work hard to meet the criteria for even associate member status, let alone eventual Federation membership. They were believed, for there was no reason to think otherwise. Generally, no one was interested in the planet. It was too far from important sectors and too small an economy. Oh, do you have to leave already? Don't argue. I've noticed you've discreetly gathered your things and are trying to get up. Take my advice. Don't even try it. It's not gonna work anyway. There was one additional ingredient in those drinks that the cyber bartender brought you, an elegant toxin. It starts to work in the lower half of your body, and you can't move at all after a few minutes. You can't even swear at me anymore. I can see in your eyes that you want to. That's what happens when you're entirely recalibrated to human biochemistry. Your body will react to human poisons. Funny, isn't it? But don't worry. It'll be gone in 24 hours, so you can walk around your prison cells all you want until your trial. Do you want to ask how we found the fake Lockstein and all the others? Well, I mean, you'd ask me if you could. I'm sure you would. I'll tell you anyway. We still have a minute before they take you to the patrol frigate. By the way, there's no actual hyperstorm. It was a cover-up to keep you from getting away early. You're not the only one who can lie, huh? You see, there are 2 things involved. My profession and a little mistake by the fake Lockstein and the other doppelgangers. You have an amusing tax system on your planet, with triple recalculation every 6 months, a rather elegant, semi-progressive scale, and a bunch of other nuances. It's a work of art. I'm telling you this as a tax inspector with half a century of experience. Probably on the insanely impoverished planet, there is nothing left to do but improve taxes. So, all the humans you replaced, stealing their memory and knowledge, were in one way or another connected with economy and management, and you, of course, taking their places, began to make a career in this field, including implementing the taxation system you are accustomed to on the planets where you settled. The Federation doesn't usually interfere in local affairs. Everyone is free to do more or less what they want at home, within reason, of course. But when the Federal Treasury started receiving taxes from the planets you've infiltrated, the tax department was surprised by one thing. Guys, you can't be such slaves to your habits. I realize that taxes are as eternal as the universe, but you shouldn't have calculated everything in the heptadecimal system. But you would probably even have gotten away with it if the fake Lockstein, the first doppelganger, hadn't included this peculiarity of yours in his report as an outstanding achievement of the planet. He never admitted what drove him, confidence that we wouldn't match the facts or pride in his planetary heritage, as no other heritage was left. And my job is to compare all kinds of numbers, so that's how it came out. Oh, the guards are here for you. Well, good luck in court. I guess you'll be sentenced to eternal imprisonment in a virtual prison. As bad as it sounds, it's your technology to blame. If it wasn't the way you treated the poor scammed Lockstein, you would have gotten the usual life sentence. You know, I never thought I would say these words, but apparently there is a first time for everything. If you had not paid taxes at all, you would have slept peacefully. A fine for non-payment can always be dismissed, but you've got your hands too deep in the cookie jar.